Twitch has... Okay, they're both live actually. So it didn't crash this time. Yeah, right. I don't... There must have been some sort of update that really tanked the damn thing and then they didn't say anything about it. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Also, I got the router, and I need to reflash the firmware on it, and it's been a real pain in the ass. It's just an Asus, you know, like AC1900 router, but it's got the AI mesh on it, so it should be able to repeat the signal down the hall, a strong enough signal. Mostly, it's trying to up my my up speeds, but I don't know. Neither. It's an AC 1900. Yeah. Yeah, it's an older one. My older router is old as well. Like at this point, like 3 years old, 4 years old. Yeah, I'm gonna upgrade both. So it's just at a point where, right, I went for the cheapest mesh network node that I could go with. By the way, we also have a YouTube name now. Yes. I was looking through the settings and that was there. But it's not normally there. Like normally those things are locked off, so it's probably like after a certain amount of videos were posted, they unlocked it. Sonic Bloom TV. Just like Twitch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well that's for the yeah, the stream that's gonna be going live. Can you? Oh, geez. Which is weird because I have it so that the on this layer it should be off. Tell me if Hey, Eric.
Hey, Justin.
Welcome to the show. You're my
Welcome back.
guest speaker because honestly, we got nothing going on except for waiting at the clock for an hour until the Game Awards comes on.
We do,
Um,
yeah. But we're
it,
gonna chat it away.
we will chat it away. Honestly, and because, I mean, Thursday just seems to be like a really good time for everybody to do press releases and, like state of plays and whatever else. So we frequently overlap them. Sometimes we're able to do like live reactions, but with the Game Awards, we're an hour away
Yeah,
and it's a long ceremony that I think takes like 2 hours, and I'm not doing 2 hours of live streaming over that stuff. Plus,
right.
who wants that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, today's show we're gonna be going less in depth into like industry stuff like we usually do. We're usually spending our time like breaking apart, marketing campaigns and in business and stuff about game design and sort of more intricate aspects of the gaming industry. But because we're doing Game Award show, I think what we're going to do this time is we're going to focus on some of the rumored stuff that we're going to see an hour from the time we start broadcasting, some of the confirmed announcements and maybe why they're interesting. And then we'll also go over the nominations and maybe make some hedge some bets as to who wins. Although honestly, in times past, the Game Awards has thrown me for a loop where you're like, oh, this one's a dead ringer for this, and then it's sometimes the more popular game. So we'll see, if our predictions come
Yeah.
true.
I mean, I'll say that back game awards have been sort of they have a sort of a weird history. There hasn't really been an external party that has done it well. I mean, there was like I think MTV might have done it at one point, and like all these various media outlets have tried to put together game awards and make it annual, and I think not many of them have survived very long. Uh, the longest running awards show that I'm aware of is the Game Developer Awards,
Right
which
at
is
GDC.
yeah, every year at GDC for I don't know, every year that I've been there, and I think I counted 13 GDCs. Um, they've had it, and it's all voting by your peers. Even then, it sometimes feels like a bit of a what's the word, popularity contest
Yeah, well,
where
because they also have like choice awards, I believe, as well.
yeah, yeah,
Which
and
again,
it's
voting by your peers, but like the stuff that's going to be forefront in mind is gonna be like the game that got the most attention. So like your God of Wars, if they're really good that year, will get the
yeah.
most attention and not necessarily win on merits of achievement.
Right. And to be fair, a lot of it is marketing driven, right?
Yeah,
Which too, I guess, is also with some other things like the movie industry and everything. It's like the bigger titles are going to make it. Small indie films that see not much stuff except in like festivals aren't necessarily going to do it. Though there may be, I don't know about those shows. They may have requirements that it's like major theatrical releases is the bucket we're looking at. And the games industry don't really have that type of thing. There's indie versus non-indie, I guess, like AAA.
and in the indie space has kind of gotten smeared as far as like how you could define it because like early on in indie, like whatever 2006, indie was pretty clearly games that are self-published, and now there's like Annapurna who they publish Devolver, they publish and get some pretty strong backing behind games. So indie's somewhere between like small scale developer that has like the marketing budget of a of like a medium sized game
Yeah,
versus self published, and then you also have things that are questionably even considered indie.
yeah.
So
I mean, and a lot of it is even within indie. You brought up Annapurna as the like publisher effectively, and there are at this point there are so many games out there, and a lot of them are, they're just hidden in a way, like you just don't know about it. So there are some little hidden gems occasionally that you'll find in Steam and whatnot, and iOS games and mobile games are almost never going to see the that stage.
yeah,
But at the same time, we'll take what we can get to an extent, right? Like
yeah.
the list of titles we're going to see in these nominations we're about to go into are going to be primarily AAA.
Yeah, AAA with the exception of some indies or smaller publishers, or smaller developer with a large publisher behind them. So yeah, so there's, I don't know, 15 different categories that things are being nominated for. We're not going over all 15, but I did sort of handpick the ones that I thought had more interesting aspects to our interests and to what are probably going to be the most talked about categories. So let's start with that. First category to go over is best audio design, which is near and dear to our hearts, given that's the type of tools that we develop.
Yeah.
Do you want to go over the nominees?
Yeah, sure. I'll list the ones are these all the nominees, or are these the selected selection?
Those are the selected nominees. Yeah.
Okay, so the nominees this year for best audio design are going to be Deathloop by Arcane Studios and Bethesda, Forza Horizon 5 by Playground Games and Xbox Game Studios, Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart, which is Insomniac Games and Sony Interactive Entertainment. I'm used to thinking of it as SEI, but yeah. Resident Evil Village by Capcom, and Returnal by Housemarque, Sony Interactive Entertainment again.
You got any comments on any of those?
My major comment is I haven't had a chance to play any of those yet myself, which is really unfortunate because I hadn't, until I saw this list, I hadn't thought that Deathloop was going to be on that type of list. That no one, to my mind, has brought up Deathloop as the shining star of audio design so far.
No, what Arcane tends to be able to do really well is set tone and mood in their games through visual and art design, or artistic design, visual and audio. I'm not sure how much they actually innovated here. There's two in there that I could say, yeah, they've innovated quite a lot, but this is where it's kind of gets weird because there's technical demonstration of some pretty interesting achievements done in audio.
Yeah.
And then there's the artistically the audio design as a whole, which you could say Returnal is one of those. Resident Evil to some degree, and Deathloop all have this really they understand audio's part in driving the experience of the game, and they design their game around that. So there's this specific audio design, but not technical achievement. Whereas I think Forza Horizon, there are some technical achievements there in audio design that haven't really been utilized before, or at least not how they utilized it. And then there's probably Ratchet and Clank, actually, and Returnal with the way that they've handled 3D audio.
Yeah, it's sort of a grab bag, and I don't know. I'm not a judge, and I have no idea what the criteria were that the judges were in this category looking at. But that's a really good point, is that sometimes you'll see things in the list here that they went and came from out of left field with some new approach to audio design and did something crazy that you've never heard before, and you're like, that's amazing. Yeah. But then you go up against a game that did everything by the book. They just did it exceedingly well,
right?
And it buried you in the game to the point where you're like, you take your headphones off, or you turn off the game, and you're like, whoa, So it's how do you balance it and whatnot?
Right.
So
right. Yeah. My money would be on Returnal from what I've heard and what I've listened to without playing the game, but that's a game that has 3D audio achievements built into it. Well, into cool. how they managed it, but also they have they went with a really interesting, obviously it's an alien world, but they use synth in very interesting ways to sort of portray each enemy and create an audioscape that's very unique, which I've heard high praise for. So
that's great.
I can imagine Resident Evil Village has been other recent Resident Evils where it's just super ambient and creepy when you have your headphones stuck to your head.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They'll have water dripping and you're like, where is it? And they may be doing positional stuff and it's coming from ahead, and you walk by it and you can hear it. And that's really good for setting the mood, especially in a horror game. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any bets on that one, or just going to go?
It's hard to say. I having not played any of them, the one that I do know about that I did see some stuff about from early marketing was Forza Horizon 5, where they were talking about going in and doing hundreds of recordings. I think it was hundreds, but just tons of recording sessions where they were taking microphones out to get specific cars and make sure that they were getting engine noise and road noise and like isolating the different sounds and aspects on where the audio is coming from different parts of the car and inside the engine versus not. And like the technical amount of data that they had and had to build into the, like, boil down into the game. How does it play out? You know, best audio design? I don't know. I could see that one being a real contender in, like, if there was best, what would it be? It would, like, best technical implementation in audio or something like that, right? But technical achievement, I could see that being a thing. I'm not sure if there was an like that, if that's all been jammed into audio design for these awards.
It seems kind of, because I don't know how much Forza Horizon is really pushing, but there is that aspect where you said where it's just like I don't remember the term exactly, but it's like microsampling, where it's like where they're taking really small samples of audio, and opposed to normal car where games like around racing, they tend to do fairly large samples and then repeat it, and then we'll change the pitch to simulate the
revving
higher and higher RPMs. Whereas this one, they're taking really, really small samples, and so they're getting more of a full simulation of what the car sounds like, and it pays off, because when you listen to the cars, you're like, that sounds pretty convincing for a game that's completely simulated, which is really, really impressive. Cool technical achievement, but audio design, I don't know. It's like more of a technical achievement versus design.
Right. Yeah. Like, how does it come in the game?
Like wider design.
Right.
Let's talk about most anticipated games here. These are games that have not yet been released. I do not know the criteria on it. I would imagine it's like a people's choice type thing, where it's like, how do you measure that? But the
Alexa?
nominees, yeah, right, exactly. Look at Amazon pre-order amounts. Like, what do you do?
Right.
And there is a people's choice aspect of this as well. So maybe that's the aspect that maybe that's what we're looking at here. But I'll go over those most anticipated games. Elden Ring from Software. It's a Bandai Namco published game, long-awaited successor to any of the from Software
Souls
titles.
Games. The Souls game.
They were Souls until they Sekiro, so that's kind of like their versions of roguelikes.
And part of the reason this game is so highly anticipated is because George R.R. Martin is attached to it. He is writing and partially producing the game or something like that.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful, and it's more of an open world game like Sekiro is, but this one seems even grander in scale. And away from like the ninja Japanese myth to back to like medieval,
strange medieval influence or inspired.
Right. We got God of War Ragnarok, Sony Santa Monica, and Sony Interactive Entertainment. That's you're gonna start seeing, especially with this coming year, all the big heavy hitters finally getting games in there that are not like their B-list games. Horizon Forbidden West, again, Guerrilla Games, Sony Interactive Entertainment. Whatever the sequel to Breath of the Wild is.
Breath of the Wild 2?
Is that what it's officially called?
No, I don't think they've released an official name for it. I think it's why it says sequel 2.
Yeah. It's published by Nintendo and developed. And then we have Starfield, with just Bethesda and Bethesda Softworks / Microsoft, whatever they call it now.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's right.
I mean, I don't know if there's much to say. I could probably just say like which one I'm most looking forward to, but I don't really think that means anything in terms of who gets nominated and awarded.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that it's God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
I think that's where I am too, honestly. Like, I really enjoyed Legend of Zelda, but I think my expectations were somewhat tampered by the video they released at E3, which was not very tantalizing. It was like, it didn't speak to me. It looked a little bit like they were almost going in a direction. The only thing that sticks out in my mind is like jumping from broken sky area to broken ledge, which felt a lot like Skyward Sword and critically not one of the best of the series. So I don't know. Starfield, I think there's like nothing known about it. I think there was a leak of textures at one point.
Yeah, there's been assets leaked, and then there was the teaser that was shown at E3 last year.
That's
Yeah.
right, and it was basically like a pre-render, right? That was what everyone thought, at least.
If
It was
if it
like
wasn't
analyzed
pre-rendered, it was like in-game assets rendered on, not necessarily in the engine.
in-game animations, right?
Yeah. So it was. I mean, I would love to see like a Bethesda circa Fallout 3
Yeah,
doing a space exploration game with today's technology.
yeah,
My biggest thing is that like ever since I'd even say like Oblivion, not Oblivion, Skyrim was more lost in its content than Fallout 3 was. Like Fallout 3 seemed more focused in design, whereas Skyrim felt kind of like more loosely hobbled together.
yeah.
And it only got worse after that. Like Fallout 4 feels a lot like that. And I never played the other Fallout.
76 or whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
76.
It was a multiplayer game, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, online multiplayer.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to think of Starfield. I'd really love to see Bethesda have a more focused game, but I can't imagine a space exploration game being more focused. So
Yeah, I think that what we're looking at is like sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think if we're looking at a popularity contest, that's my guess, like overall industry player base. And that's simply because it sold gajillions of copies, and more people are aware of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild than they are about any of the other games.
and I think God of War kind of lost its luster because there's like two issues here, right? Like
Yeah,
God of War last released in what, 2018?
I think so. That sounds right.
And it was a stunning technical achievement. They're releasing on PC, and you look at it, you're like, it's not significantly more advanced than. It's a beautiful looking game, and they've been able to update like the way that they do like shadow rendering and atmospheric effects and whatnot, and plus render at a high resolution. But when you think about it, like how can Ragnarok really achieve much more than with the first God of War or fourth, whatever you want to call it, God of War on PS4? With that achieved, I don't see how they're really going to be able to inspire be as inspiring as it was when it came out at that time, because I don't think the achievement's going to be there. They're working off that old engine. And I just don't know how impressive it's going to be. I still want to play it because I think it's going to be great, but
yeah, right, yeah, like just trust the team. They've proven their mettle time and time again, and
yeah,
there's no reason to think they're going to drop the ball now. But
in some ways, I think like Forbidden West, for some reasons, is going to be more of a jump, because that was I think year 3 PlayStation 4 game. So you've had this bunch of time, and although it's still going to be a very similar game, they've had a lot of time to like improve a lot of the engine to.
Is that one still coming to PS4 as well?
It is. The question is going to be is like what, like we see with the Xbox Series, S, and the X is like, as you see these like games like really start pushing into the performance,
the new generation.
There's some weird compromises that are having to be made for the lower consoles,
tier stuff.
Yeah.
Even though Microsoft is still like, no, it's just resolution.
That's still a misinformed statement, I'd say. Or well-informed, but just,
a little misleading.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Best Indie. You want to go over those?
Sure. Yeah. So we have the title 12 Minutes by Antonio, published by Annapurna Interactive. Death's Door by Acid Nerve, published by Devolver Digital. Kena Bridge of Spirits by Ember Lab, seems to be self-published perhaps. Inscription, by Daniel Mullins Games, and published by Devolver Digital. And the game Loop Hero by Four Quarters, and published once again by Devolver Digital. I think Devolver Digital has a good shot at taking home a Best Indie award this this year.
It's like 305 nominations.
Yeah.
It actually, I think that kind of speaks to the indie space now, right? Like, how much these like Devolver and Annapurna have like stepped in as like small, publishers.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially in the PC space, and the fact that like now gaming is kind of more balanced across the different platforms because the new engines that can just spit out copies to different platforms, and the fact that x86 architecture is largely supported by every console, well, except for Switch, and the PC space. So like getting a game published on multiple platforms and hitting a large audience is not as difficult as it used to be.
Right.
And as a result, like you see these companies just coming in and becoming publishers for these, and being able to put the marketing backing behind these smaller titles to promote them above, the sea of, mixture of really indie and interesting. And I think it's taking a lot more for indie games to sort of rise above, these medium publishers that are publishing indie titles and sort of get seen and appreciated for what they are.
Yeah, there's like the self-published tier.
Yeah.
And then there's the like indie publisher tier, and then there's above that is like AAA tier. And like self-published titles, the count is just basically infinite. There's like hundreds of games submitted to Steam a day, or something like that. And then the publishers, the indie publishers, are looking at they filter out lots of that and pick. They get to like pick the cream of the indie crop and put marketing dollars behind those.
That or work with someone who became like
that's right,
high level indie publisher, and then it was like, okay, your next game is going to be published by us.
And a lot of the reason they're able to do that is because the developer has proven that they can make a full game, and it reduces the risk for the publisher there. And B, because they now further reduce the risk because this publisher has likely built a name for themselves, and just saying game by indie publisher can frequently be enough to get a certain like number of sales sort of guaranteed.
Yeah, it's like a sort of like a built-in user base from the people who enjoyed their last game.
Right.
And because and as a player, it's sort of the same thing where it's just like there's so many indie titles out there, and that if you really enjoy the art and design of a certain game, that like the next game published by the same person may be a surefire bet of getting an indie title that's a worthwhile experience.
Right.
And I think the mini publishers are kind of know the same thing and are following that model.
Right. And you get to the tier above that, and it's AAA, and you're basically looking at first and second party studios at this point. They're really, the number of third party studios is exceedingly small, and they tend to live in between the cracks, sort of subsisting on, like, a lot of them can be even indie developers who occasionally like spike up and jump up above their normal weight class to publish a game develop a game that is attached to some IP that's like a IP holder will say, I want to make a game with my IP. I just need a developer to do it. First and second party teams are very unlikely to do it unless it's a major IP, like say Spider-Man,
or like a long running franchise like Resident Evil.
Right. Yeah. But even then, that's generally going to be a Capcom thing, unless it's for like.
What I'm saying, like for Capcom to publish something that's experimental, usually gets thrown to like a small development team, if at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Or as an internal team that's like their second tier or whatever, third tier that is maybe they don't have all the work for them right now for like doing ports or whatever, so they'll give them a small project to work on and see if this experiment becomes a thing. Yeah. So anyway,
any calls
of the list?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going 100% Inscription. No reason, just because
no bias there.
No bias at all.
I mean, I've heard great things about all of them. Kina's the one that I've seen the most about.
Yeah, same.
But I heard mixed things about the quality of the game. Like it's kind of more like the design of the game is not particularly interesting, but the visual design and the polish of it is gorgeous and exceeds kind of what you expect from an indie title.
It was one of the early standouts in the kind of early game announcements from I want to say it was the PlayStation.
PlayStation.
Their state of play, and it was one of the ones that I was like really keying in on for PS5 stuff.
Yeah.
Even going up against bigger kind of first party and AAA titles was like, wow, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So disclaimer here for everybody: the reason that we smiled and when I said Inscription is because the developer of that used our technology to develop part of their game.
Part of the experience.
Yeah.
I will say the ones that I heard most for at least innovative design is Inscription, to be fair.
Yeah.
And in 12 minutes, I've heard lots of great things. I don't really know because, and honestly, even if I was cheerleading a game, it would be because I played it.
Yeah, same.
So I don't know. It's going to be a toss-up. I'll say Inscription. I'd love for it to be Inscription.
Yeah, let's do it. I will also say that like I haven't seen anything about Death's Door, I think, but Loop Hero for sure. I haven't played it myself, but I've watched. I sat down to watch someone play it. Like someone sent me a YouTube link and was like, "Here's someone doing a Let's Play of Loop Hero," and I was like, "I've never heard of this. Let's check it out." And I sat down. I was like stuck watching YouTube for like 45 minutes because it was so compelling. It's a 2D game. It looks like it's maybe somewhere between like NES and SNES quality graphics, but the gameplay, the game cycle is so tight. The game loop, yeah, thank you, is so tight and so like I could watch the player and the person playing it was like, I'm just gonna do one more loop, one more play through this, and it's roguelike, so sometimes you get bad rolls and you die fast, but I think I watched the whole video and the player actually did like 3-4 more. He just couldn't stop, and I was like, that's like me trying to watch this video anyway.
Yeah, I mean that probably says a lot. If you end up addicted just to watching the game, it probably has a lot to offer as far as gameplay. But
yeah,
again, I can't speak to any of the indie titles. I'm actually like really, really behind on games in general this year.
Yeah.
Let's just jump to Game of the Year, though. We were going to talk about Best Narrative, but we're kind of running. We're about half an hour from when the show starts, so we'll go to Game of the Year, talk about these, and then we'll go to some of the rumors. So Game of the Year nominations are Deathloop, like we said before, Arcane Studios, Bethesda, It Takes Two, Hazelight Studios, and EA, Metroid Dread, Mercury Steam, and Nintendo. Mercury Steam being like one of the few European studios. Psychonauts 2, Double Fine, Xbox Game Studios, Ratchet & Clank, Rift Apart, Insomniac Games, and SIE, and Resident Evil Village, Capcom. Anything stand out to you in those?
The one that stands out to me that is somewhat of a surprise for like top accolades Game of the Year is Psychonauts 2. And I mentioned that because the first Psychonauts game, as I recall, I don't remember it. Maybe it did win big accolades, but I don't.
And not big accolades. Like it was well appreciated amongst the developer group crowd, but it's more of a sleeper.
It didn't critically
gain in popularity as time went on. I think there's some people like singing its praises, especially with its humor. But
I mean, I didn't play it for years. Like I did eventually play it. I played it on the Mac. Like that's when it was available on Steam on the Mac is when I bought it and played it. I think it was like 2010, 2009, 2010, and it had been out for years. Like, was that a PlayStation 2 title?
Yeah, it's a PlayStation 2 title.
Yeah, so like it's long time, and now we're at Psychonauts 2, and like what they showed, I haven't played it, but what they showed didn't speak to me very much. They showed a lot of like platforming, basic.
I think mechanics. Again, like the game doesn't. It was actually like Psychonauts 1. It's like the platforming felt old even at that time. It felt like Nintendo 64 era. Platforming when the PlayStation 2 was out. But it made up for it in its humor, its story, how it handled its the topic, and
themes,
and I think the same goes for this. Is like the gameplay doesn't seem all that innovative. It's the storytelling, it's the humor, it's the themes in which it has the trademarks, Double Fine comedy and sort of whimsy behind it. So maybe it's speaking to the nostalgic factor. I think there is still a space for games like that, and we just don't see them very often. So
for sure, yeah. But that was one that sort of stuck out to me. Like, wow. I mean, the rest of the titles here are all like major effectively major first party titles. The only other one that's sort of a smaller one is It Takes Two, as I understand it, which is, I think that might be one of the rare sort of indie smaller studios that was published by EA, right?
It was initially, right? Like they were the ones that who, well, they were I don't know if they were bought, or just published, but you know, it was the developer behind Brothers, and that was an indie title. But then they started doing games that were published by EA. So either way, EA's been publishing them without any issue, if not outright purchased them. Yeah. What I do kind of find interesting about the Game of the Year nominations, though, is that these are games that would normally not be Game of the Year if the first parties were like really full charge. But I think you have on Nintendo's side, it's like the end of the life of the Switch. And if they manage to milk it for another year or so, it's because they're forced to milk it for another year or so because of hardware issues. Not theirs.
Chip shortage.
Yeah, chip shortages. And then the other side, which is, you know, Xbox and PlayStation with brand new consoles and just the development effort not quite there yet. Like Ratchet and Clank is not normally one of Sony's big games, but it was this year because it was a year where basically there weren't any big first-time party titles, and now you see it making it to the Game of the Year award. So not that they aren't deserved, but it's just they usually get overshadowed. And so it's kind of like you can see by the roster, you're like, okay, this is a weird year for gaming.
Yeah.
So anyways, do I have any picks?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go with Ratchet and Clank or Psychonauts 2. I might think that Deathloop is like
I think the Deathloop might be the curveball that takes it.
That I think just like conceptually and design wise and artistically, Arcane Studios normally knocks it out of the park. Their games have been nominated before for Game of the Year.
They get Game of the Year editions of their games. It's like Arcane Studios. It's like I'm gonna get Dishonored 2 Game of the Year edition, right? Like they're just sort of in their blood.
Yeah, so maybe that's the one that gets in there. But we'll see. I guess we'll see. Yeah. So do you want to go into this next part of our talk?
Yeah, let's dive into rumored announcements and confirmed announcements and dig around in there.
Let's go through the confirmed ones. There's quite a bit there. Do you want to go over a few of them that interest you?
Sure, yeah. The first one is that there is supposedly going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog the Movie 2 trailer showing up here. And for those who aren't aware, this made big headlines last year when I think it was last year, maybe the year before, when no, it must have been. It was like 2 years, maybe 3 years ago when they showed the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie trailer, and it had like creepy baby teeth in the model for Sonic, and
creepy baby Sonic
eyes. Really, really awkward and disturbing, and totally missed the Sonic aesthetic. They were like, "Why? What's with this hybrid? Just do Sonic. If you're going to go that far, just use Sonic."
Yeah,
and that's what they eventually did. They took a lot of creative feedback from like the general population, went back to the drawing board and managed to somehow redo all the movie with the new Sonic model. And the movie actually apparently was pretty good at the end of the day.
It's not half bad. It's not half good, but it's not half bad. Like it's like it's the type of movie you're like, I watched that once. I don't need to watch it again, but it was fun.
Yeah, and that was a movie that had Jim Carrey come back, sort of out of quasi-retirement.
In his
classic,
like really exaggerated
contorty face personage.
This one we're getting Idris Elba as Knuckles.
Oh man, yes.
At least that was the rumor, and I think it was confirmed, but they're not talking about him, so I don't know if that's like. Either way, we got a teaser. Was Idris Elba in the Mario movie that they announced? No, not that I know of.
I thought he was. All right, anyway, yeah.
Chris Pratt is. But let's not talk about that because we'll end up getting like comments. But there are some interesting things that I'll also bring up. The Halo series, which was teased at Xbox's 20th anniversary, plus Xbox showing up and probably going to be talking about Game Pass. It looks like Microsoft is rearing to use this as a marketing platform, which I mean, it's not out of the blue. They did the Xbox Series announcement at Game Awards. I think in 2019. I think it was 2019. So yeah, I mean, you got a big marketing platform there. I think they're looking to do it again. And Sony is like strangely absent. They supposedly there's going to be some big announcements, but
Project Spartan.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Like, I don't know if they'll use it as an opportunity to promote it, but it's kind of interesting that Microsoft is really stepping up their marketing campaign now that they've figured out how to market, which we actually talked about at our last Sonic Boom Live about Microsoft's positioning and their marketing, that it seems like they finally figured out where they fit and they're going to run with it. So there's another. There's at least 2 more announcements in there that I'm really interested in that are confirmed.
Go for it. I mean, I've got the Halo series one.
I mean that's what I'm talking about with like the Microsoft really using this whole thing to be like an opportunity to promote themselves. The Matrix.
Yeah, is that an experience or is that a game? The Matrix Awakens.
They're calling it an experience, and it's specifically with Unreal Engine 5. So everybody's thinking that it's going to be fully rendered in UE5 and it's going to be the first major demonstration.
Does that mean Nanite? Because Nanite, everyone, when people think of UE5, Epic so far has not done a great job of dissociating Nanite, the technology, from UE5, the game engine. Yep. Whereas Nanite is one component in the game engine and developers can choose whether to use it or not.
Well, I mean, it's a UE, it's an Unreal or an Epic developed app where they worked with someone. So I'm certain they're going to be like showcasing all the technology they can muster on the 2 major game consoles. Plus it's tied to the Matrix, which has Matrix Resurrections, which has a release date in a couple of weeks.
This month.
So I think it'll be a big one. I'm super excited to see what Rocksteady's finally been up to. We know it's Suicide Squad because we saw they've teased it more than once now. They showed at E3 last year or at some WB thing and another WB thing before that. But no gameplay has been shown. So I'm really curious as to what the gameplay will actually look like.
Remind folks why Rocksteady is of interest.
The interesting part to me is they made the 3 excellent games of the Batman Arkham games.
Arkham series, that's right.
Yeah.
For WB, yeah. Is this also going to be a WB because of it being DC tied?
It's WB published for as long as WB
maintains that.
Yeah, it maintains that. I mean, they have a handful of games in development, including the Arkham City. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where it's like Batman's dead and now all the other Batfolk are fighting crime in Arkham City.
Oh, yes. That's right.
But it's not developed by Rocksteady. I believe it's developed by Monolith, but I could be wrong about that. No, it's WB Montreal that's developing it. Who's also done other Arkham games, like the Arkham Origins was them as well. So it should be interesting. It looks like the team's being like unleashed to really do their own thing, while Rocksteady was tied up with Suicide Squad. But either way, I'm really excited to see what this is going to be. You want to cover the last point?
Oh yeah, I love that point there. So just as a heads up, everybody, Activision Blizzard will not be at the show.
Specifically, like Jeff Keighley texted it. I was like, I can confirm that they're not going to be presenting. Which I imagine is a great, like both of them were like, I don't want to touch this.
Let's not do this right now. Yeah, it's there are legal issues with the whole like Activision Blizzard is actively under investigation. Their CEO was ousted or something like that, or there's a lot of shakeup happening.
The CEO at Blizzard was ousted, or president at Blizzard.
Yeah, president. So there's been some shakeup of the higher ups.
CEO Bobby Kotick is being pressured to leave. I don't know if he's going to or if he has already, but because there was within like the last month was shown that he was aware of the harassment issues and basically didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, it was something like the the president, someone higher up at one of the companies had been doing not great things, and I think Bobby Kotick stepped in and said, "Don't, just do disciplinary actions, but don't fire them."
Yeah,
or something.
shielded the person.
Shielded them.
Yeah.
And that came out during this investigation where they were like, "It's not a good look."
Yeah.
And so there's a lot. And I think even just today, I saw something where I think a whole bunch of Activision Blizzard employees are going on strike.
Yep.
Now, so like it's not a great day for Activision Blizzard. There's like, let's leave this out of the whole conversation for now.
Yep. So and no one wants that light on them. So both. No. I'm assuming both entities were just like, nope, and I'm okay with that answer. So
there may actually even be legal reasons that Activision Blizzard can't do anything, like where they put themselves into a scenario where they might say something that is construed, it could be taken into the courtroom, right? Like there's concerns on both sides here.
So they're pretty much next from that. So let's cover some, because we've got 15 minutes left. Rumors of what's going to be there. Do you want to cover any of those?
Sort of. Presumably there may be, going back to the Breath of the Wild 2 thing, or sequel to the Breath of the Wild, there may be some footage shown. We saw stuff at E3 6 months ago. 6 months from what we were shown, we don't know when that footage was cut. We don't know if they're showing footage here, what footage, where that will come from. But 6 months on a game of that scale, unless they've been literally just in basically production from that time until now and are focusing on one area of the game to showcase, I can't imagine it being something big and noteworthy.
Exactly. It's like everybody wants to see Breath of the Wild 2, and I don't blame people for wanting to see it, but the state it showed at E3 is just like, they'd have to be doing a lot of content creation over 6 months to be able to show something.
Yeah, that looks like you took a special build of Breath of the Wild 1 and started playing with game systems.
Yeah, I mean that's what if they showed at E3, it was like okay. So I really don't know how they would show like a really polished trailer at the Game Awards. So
right,
and Nintendo is not known to push things if they're not ready. So.
Right, yeah, no, they'll hold things back until they'll cancel things after piping it for 4 years because it doesn't quite hit their quality expectations.
I'd caution the optimism of expecting to see it at this.
Right.
One of the bigger things that came up too is the Chrono Cross remake, which is just a rumor that like popped up like a couple weeks ago, but people are like now certain that because I think someone was like, like a long beloved sequel or a long beloved remake is happening and Sony might be publishing it, but it also feels like wishful thinking for like Sony fanboys. It happened with Final Fantasy VII.
Fantasy VII, to be fair, had a much bigger fan base than Chrono Cross.
Yeah, and it was like 10 years of people demanding to see that game again. So like
remake Final FF7, like not even Final Fantasy, but specifically Final Fantasy VII. Everyone wanted that game remade.
Although I'd say I'd be okay with 6. I'd really want them to
totally.
6. But
no, same here. And it would have been so 6, for those who don't know, was Final Fantasy 3 in the States, and it was back in the SNES 16-bit sprite version. So you had the little people walking around, and it was superb. I played it on the PlayStation because I didn't have it on the SNES. When they released it on PlayStation, I watched it with cinematics, like the cutscenes, and it was stupendous. That game was amazing. Final Fantasy VII is the one that captured everyone's imaginations with their like trailers that looked like a movie, an animated movie on TV.
And although Chrono Cross is like a PS1 era, like really, I mean, it's
an excellent game,
a weird successor to Chrono Trigger. It's at least, I don't even know if it's in the same universe, but it's not like Akira Toriyama doing the.
It is the same universe. Yeah,
but. It's more. It feels more like a spiritual successor than it feels like an actual.
No, totally. The stories don't really, as I understand it. I haven't played through all of Chrono Cross, but I have played through all of Chrono Trigger. The one thing, and I spoke to my brother who has played through both. The one piece that I noticed, at least he played through Chrono Cross, maybe not Chrono Trigger, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
And the one thing we noticed that was the same was they had these little machines that you would like step into to get your health restored, and this is a specific area in the future of Chrono Trigger. And my brother was playing and he ran into this thing and he didn't know what the context was at the time, but I did, having played through Chrono Trigger. And that was like the one link that I was aware of. There's probably more, but these are big 40 to 80 hour games that have lots of story and pieces to it. So
I just feel skeptical that like this is given how quickly the rumor came up and what Square already has on its plate, like that's like maybe it is, but
if they're doing it, it's almost certainly going to be similar to the ActRaiser Renaissance remake of ActRaiser that happened recently, rather than an FF7 style. We're doing this in Unreal Engine 4 with complete regeneration.
Game. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I don't see that being the case. Maybe they've updated some graphics and done something.
And there's other PS1 era games that I'd much rather see, like a Xenogears, which I thought, I don't know, was more endearing than Chrono Cross. I don't know. Either way, I think it's one of those weird rumors, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
Sure.
I think what's more credible is Hellblade 2 is being rumored, which was shown at, I think, 2018, like long ago.
Yep. And they announced it at, like, wasn't it the Xbox game, like, their announcement of the Xbox Series X or something like that? Or
no, I think they showed it again at the
yeah.
Right. So
it was the same.
It's been shown multiple times at this point, and like portions of it.
Very small portions.
Yeah. And,
teasers.
And they jumped engines. I think they went from UE4 to UE5 during. So like, it's about time that something gets shown, and I wouldn't be surprised if it actually does pop up at the Game Awards, especially given that Microsoft seems that they are really priming the pump to show off some interesting games. And I don't think any other game besides maybe what's it called, Starfield, would be in a position to actually have like a real trailer around it that isn't just like a pre-rendered video. So those two games I think are the most likely to be seen for like to have like a real trailer around it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hellblade makes that jump, and it should be further along than Starfield, if I'm honest. Right. So that may even get like a surprise like summer 2022 release date behind it. Who knows?
How about Kojima?
I mean, Kojima and Jeff Keighley, I have to say, have been like weird bedfellows lately.
I think they're trolls. I think they literally this is a time for them to be trolls and just have fun. Like Kojima's last project, for everyone for those listening, Metal Gear Solid fame. The latest project was Death Stranding, which had a recent. Well, it's been out for a little while now, but
it was released. It came out in fall.
Yeah,
like late summer.
And it hit PC and everything, and it like looks beautiful. But even on the PS4, it was a stunningly gorgeously done game.
Yeah.
And did a lot of really cool things, lots of cinematic flair, and definitely like Kojima sees himself. I suspect that Kojima sees himself more of almost more as a film director than a game director at this point.
Well, the other thing too that Kojima can get away with every time is showing absolutely nothing and getting a huge reaction out of it.
Right.
So he can be like, I'm going to have a teaser at this, which I think is likely because it's been a couple of years since he's released the game, and he can show almost nothing, and it will be enough for people to.
It'll be like a close up of someone's face.
Yeah,
and it'll be an actor that you recognize because they'll do that again.
Yeah.
And maybe a scenario, maybe the camera pans away and you see them in a position and you're like, it just asks the question of like, what is this? What's going on?
And a cryptic title that's not the real title of the game.
Project something.
So
that's what it'll be.
So I think
anything.
I think there's a good chance that will be here.
I wouldn't be surprised if they like went full troll and did the whole thing where people thought that there was going to be what was that last game at Sony's announcement or something like that, where there was like the whole rumor mill was going super crazy.
Oh yeah, with the I can't remember the name of it. It's the one that
everyone thought it was.
Yeah, everybody thought it was
Silent Hill.
Yes, and there's still that rumor too. And which if
there.
Sony is actually working with Konami on a Silent Hill, that will also blow people's minds if it happens.
I would not be surprised if there is nothing announced, but the language that Kojima and Jeff Keighley use as they go back and forth drops hints or use language that seems to be callbacks to Silent Hill for no other reason than to keep people like barking up the wrong tree. That I could totally see that happening at this point. It's almost a meme of itself.
Yeah, and it's like Kojima's signature. So yeah, I expect that. Any other rumors that you think are particularly valid?
I have valid some I don't know about valid, but I could like realistic potentially. Like I could see them remaking, for instance, Resident Evil 4
I mean, it's
or re-releasing it.
it's
At
long
least.
rumored, and there's been art released. There's been people putting stuff like that on its resumes. I mean, at this point, it's more or less a given. It's just Capcom. I think I don't even know if Capcom has officially like acknowledged that it exists, but it's due for a surprise return sometime soon.
Because they've done Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, I think.
Yeah.
Right? In recent-ish remakes.
Well, all of
I
them
think
have been remade quite extensively.
Yeah. I want to say Resident Evil 2 maybe has been remade twice now or something like that. Has had like
No, they did Resident Evil
versions.
0, Resident Evil 1 remade in the GameCube era,
right,
PS2 era, which were great remakes.
They were excellent.
I think they were end up porting over to the next generation, if I recall correctly.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
And then RE2 got an actual remake. With this latest generation.
Yep.
And with RE3 as well. So an RE4 seems appropriate. And then after that, it's RE5, which is Xbox 360 generation. So I don't.
Right. Yeah, RE4 was the same generation as the Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil 4 were the same generation.
I think the only one that they could throw in there is Code Veronica.
I was about to mention Code Veronica and say that's one that I would love to see remade. That was a great game. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. They did Code Veronica X, but that's when it pushed its way into the PS2 from the GameCube. So
yeah, that's right.
Those I think that's a credible rumor. I think the one that has nothing's been rumored credibly, but I still think something's going to happen is Sony showing something, because they've taken the opportunity to do like really long gameplay reveals at the Game Awards. They did it with Ghost of Tsushima. They did it with Last of Us, the first Last of Us. So like they usually don't miss an opportunity to do that, but given Microsoft's presence here, I don't know if they will do it, but like fingers crossed they do.
Maybe this is the new Battlegrounds, right? Like they don't have E3 the same way. They don't have the GDC show floor for us developers. This is the new battleground for them to be like both vying for hearts and minds.
Yeah. And I think Microsoft just has a ton of money to make sure that Game Pass is successful and continues to be. So we'll see.
I mean, I imagine Sony may be holding on to their war chest for the time being and prepping stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that like there's no mystery of what Sony's releasing next year.
Right.
Like,
it's coming this next year,
unless there's a game that they just haven't talked about that's been in development, but it's a loaded year for them. So I couldn't imagine them like really pushing a game in there, because they've got Horizon, God of War, Gran Turismo. There's more in there that I'm not remembering right now, but yeah, they've got a pretty loaded next year. So I don't know.
Anyway, we have 4 minutes left.
Yeah, so let's let everybody duck out. If anybody's been following us along, I hope you enjoyed our pre-show coverage and enjoy the show and enjoy the new reveals that come out in the next hour or so.
Yeah, if nothing else, it'll be an entertaining look at like the trailers they put together for this kind of thing are really fun and a good insight into, at least, for people like Justin and myself, maybe games we haven't played yet. So
exactly.
A good list to like, ooh, what's next? It's holiday season is right now. So
what should I be buying? Pretty much.
Or asking for on my wish list, right?
Right.
So
all right, well, enjoy the show, everybody, and we'll see you again next week at 6 p.m.
All right, looking forward to it.
See ya.